Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast for people who want a deeper conversation about the films we watch today. And we've got an interesting show, a different show from what we normally do. Brought in another ringer, another expert to talk about movie posters. As we can see on there, of course, I'm shamelessly, folks, abusing the whole Superman hype. Of course, the film's coming out tomorrow, as based on today's recording, the day before it was released. But we'll talk about more iconic posters, and I think that means we should get this show on the road. And I want to welcome a great friend of the channel, a personal friend of mine, a guy I've known for several years now, a local here in Winnipeg, a local graphic designer, a local artist, a local creative. Please, let's give a warm welcome, a wonderful warm welcome to my friend, Evan Coos. How you doing, sir?
Wow. Nice introduction. That was very nice. I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm just thrilled to be here. And I know we have our common interests of design and movies, but to be able to be here and talk about this, it's practically like the magic of movies.
Well, let me ask you this, Evan. Why don't you give us a bit of an idea of who you are, where you come from? Of course, we will talk about Slybird Creative, your company, later on in the show, but maybe a bit of a history on how you became a graphic designer, why you like it, and also your love of film and how the two connect.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with the movie side because I just love movies from as far back as I can remember, and it's pretty obvious. It's just it's an escape. It's tapping into someone's creative, somebody's, well, you hope, brilliance, and I think I've just always enjoyed the experience of being able to attend a movie. And I think graphic design is not dissimilar in that, we're always looking to tell a story. And you want to tell it well, and you want it to be understandable, and you want people at the end to go and like it and remember it. And
Yeah.
movies are the same. And we do tend to remember our favorite movies. And I have like a standing list of movies that if I'm flipping through the channels, and yes, I still have cable. If one of those movies is on, like I'm stuck. I'll watch no matter what point in the movie it is. I'll watch to the end because it's like a feel good thing that you need in that part of the day.
No.
So I've been a graphic designer for 35-ish years, mostly based in Winnipeg, a little bit in Europe. And I love what I do. And that's just a big bonus to me.
Here's a question for you. I mentioned it before in the digital green room. You and I have talked about this off and on for a few months. When I first posted something where I'm saying, this poster, it uses that stack of heads thing, but it isn't that bad. And you chimed in, yeah, no, it might be going for something there. But let me ask you this. My understanding is always, or the way I've defined graphic design in my head is that it's about solving problems. You're trying to communicate something, trying to motivate people to do something or think something or get a message across. And of course, with a movie, it's come see our movie. Is that what do you think of that definition? Is that a working definition for us, or do you want to add or change anything to that?
Well, I would definitely say that's a very good representation of what I do. But one thing I would add to it is that not only do you want the person to believe in what you're putting out, you want them to become an advocate. If I'm doing work for somebody who has a product or service, not only do you want them to buy into that, but you want them to tell their friends and their family. And it's the same with movies, right? Like, how many times do you see people posting, "Oh, I just saw Jurassic Park 45. It's amazing. They've redone it, and you got to go see it." Well, if they make it to 45,
that'd be that happening.
Yeah,
Continue.
but like, because you need word of mouth. You need that honest kind of tap in. As much as you run ads to say this is the greatest movie, that'll never beat a good friend saying, "Wow, that was a good story." But the one asterisk I'll put to that is that anytime my brother recommends a movie, I take it with a grain of salt. Our tastes are very different. Yes.
Okay. Well, maybe it's time to dive in, but of course, first, folks, I'm going to shamelessly beg you all for a like, a subscribe, and of course, don't forget to ringy-ding that bell. All right. Let's start, my friend. Let's start with the very first one, and that is, I did ask, I shamelessly abuse almost like a clickbait title with are any of these movie posters super? But it does make me think of our the fact that Superman is coming out, and I wanted to get your take on, here are the three, key Superman art that I could find, and kind of a tagline, either "It begins" or "Look up." And I'm wondering, what do you think of those three?
In the design industry, and I do a lot of ad campaigns and stuff, and I always try and imagine what went on in the boardroom when they sold the concept. And
yeah,
I can't imagine a scenario where somebody has brought the artwork and they've put it on a board or put it on a screen, and then they say, "It begins." And the whole room full of people clap because they're so motivated by it. I was like so disappointed. It begins? Well, everything kind of begins. Look up? Well, there was just a movie called, or well, I guess it was Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
Beautiful artwork, bit of an AI tinge to it, and that's okay. They're trying to, I probably should tap into, kind of the local or the current sensibilities.
Yeah.
But I look at the posters and I go, ooh, I kind of like that fabric on the sleeve. That's really nice. But it doesn't entice me.
Yeah.
It's not telling a story, except that it begins. Well, okay, well, tell me why it's different from every other reboot of Superman.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you mentioned so the center one, I was like kind of, hey, that's kind of neat.
Yeah,
You know, at
yeah,
least you got the symbol. Um, it's a step somewhere, some direction, I guess.
yeah,
But here's the as I was researching this, Evan, and I was pulling this up, and then I'm like, okay, well, you know, what was the last? You know, I can kind of see the '78 one with Christopher Reeves,
yes,
and I'm not sure we'll see it here. It's the tagline, and this is the one in my head. It's the iconic one. Um, the tagline in this is, "You'll believe a man can fly." I'm even getting choked up.
yeah, right,
That's
yeah. That's beautiful.
That's now
Yeah, and
that's a f***ing tagline. That's like, well, I wanna see that.
as an aside, I just read an article this week that rated all the Supermans, and Christopher Reeves number one, like
Yeah.
hands down, right? And I don't think it's just because of his story, his acting abilities. I think they got to tell the story first. Like, well,
The
we'll say
modern,
first,
let's say, yeah.
a modern take on it
Yeah.
first, and they did it right, right? And so
Mhm.
now every time they do it, it's compared against all the other versions that
Yeah.
they've done. But I love a strong tagline. Like, it's not just the visual for me. The tagline is it's the push through the door. Now it's the
Well
push to go online and book my whole
well, yeah,
recliner.
like, I mean, yeah, look at it. It's got you know what? It's got, you've got that movement through clouds. You know, the it feels like things are moving,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then a man can fly.
yeah. Exactly. It leaves stuff to the imagination.
And would you say it almost the everything about it kind of invites you to come see it?
Hmm.
Like it really does harken to you go to the movies to see a real special effect, a real spectacle.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, in what was damn near a perfect summer movie.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
exactly. And
yeah.
I think it re-emphasizes how important the story is, not
Mhm.
just the special effects, not the graphics. There has to be a story to it. And
Yeah.
in that solution to the movie, they are creating intrigue. While the other one is like, is the new Superman good looking or not? Do you like his costume or not?
Yeah.
And but they're also dealing with so much of the population knowing who Superman is, was, what his challenges are,
Mhm.
and so they have to find a way to entice people to see it. But I, I'm not a big Superman fan to begin with. I love most Marvel movies and superhero movies, but Superman's just one who, I don't know, doesn't pull at my heartstrings.
Yeah, it doesn't quite have the and it could be that and this is not a knock on our friends across the border, but Superman is the he personifies the American way.
Yeah,
And the yeah, as Canadians, it's like, well, that's very nice for them.
yeah,
That's
right.
great. So, you know, I even made years ago challenge friends. It's like, what would a Canadian superhero look like? Notwithstanding Captain Canuck comics, which I had when I was a kid, but
Yeah,
honestly, Evan, I was like, me and friends kidding around, or I was like, oh, well, you know what? They'd be a committee member. They'd be getting signatures on a. They'd be community activists. They'd be getting signatures on petitions and showing up at community meetings. And I'm like, that's a Canadian superhero.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Uh,
I might say Shazam would be a closer step to being Canadian. There's,
oh yeah,
yeah, and I did watch that movie, like kind of the reboot when it came out.
I
Um,
thought it was a pretty solid flick, actually.
I did, and the poster intrigued me because it's Shazam. It's like, I don't know. We've talked about this, kind of the labeling, the titling of movies, and even characters is so important. And it's like it's Superman. It's a Superman, but Shazam, like wow, like
Shazam.
It sets expectations. Superman is just like, well, he's a man, and he's super, yeah, sure, yeah. We couldn't be like him, but maybe we could be like Shazam.
Yeah. Although, we should move forward, but I'll add one more thing. A coworker of mine years ago, when we were talking about Zack Snyder's version of Superman and how he was excited for it, and I was like, really, you're into that? Like, it wasn't part of my upbringing. But because of the Christopher Reeve Superman, because he was maybe 10 plus, somewhere like just old and young enough, younger than me enough that when he was a little boy, he had Christopher Reeve merch,
Wow. Yeah.
and so he ran around with a cape and that. And so that may be, some of the generational divide for us. But Evan, let's go to the first, you know what, we're going to start at the very top of your list. Let's take a look at, what was it again, Evan? What was number one on your list? Or did you want to start from the back? How do you want to go?
I'd kind of like you to choose. I like this.
You know what? Let's start from number 5.
Surprised.
We should count down, actually. I don't know.
Sure. Okay. I like that.
So that was Star Wars Phantom Menace. Not exactly a lauded, praised film, although it has come under a bit of positive critical review of late. But you certainly loved this poster, and I kind of see what you mean. But why don't you walk us through it, my friend?
Yeah. So, even though I said I love that second punch of wording on a poster, this one I distinctly remember being in the theater, seeing it, and as somebody who grew up with Star Wars and the series and looking into how do I be like the people in Britain and declare it as my religion. This just struck me because it's just gorgeously done, and it's simple. It's not logical. It's not possible, but it tells the story. And everyone knows that he's going to turn into Darth Vader, right? And they're just putting it right out there.
Yeah.
So you have to draw the line between that little boy and that shadow, and understand that movie is going to take you part of the way there. And so right there, it succeeds for me because they're indicating a story without telling a story. Like, we know the ending. So how do you intrigue people to go watch something that they know the ending of? It's like when a movie starts and like the one with, I probably shouldn't mention Kevin Spacey here, but the one where he starts off by saying, "Today I die," right? And it's just like, oh, that's a big spoiler. And this is a big spoiler. It's like, oh, look at that little boy. He's going to turn into Darth Vader.
You're referring to American Beauty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did it with Sunset Boulevard? You can start the movie saying, "Hey, here's your future." Then it becomes, then it's all about the journey, which is, I think, the point of. Yeah, I think that was the point of the Phantom Menace. Is we're going to find out how he becomes. It's not about who this little boy becomes. We already know that. It's how does he become?
Exactly. And we love backstories, right? And as much as George Lucas can say, "Oh, I planned this 3 and then this 3 and this 3," I kind of question that. There's obviously some inconsistencies, brother and sister kissing, but beyond that, I know he was heavily criticized for this because I believe he wrote these, right? And the dialogue wasn't great, and we got to meet Jar Jar, but at the end of the day, it built a story from here to here. And bridged a bit of a gap.
And back to the poster, it's I mean, it's at times we kind of maybe we don't want to put too much load on the poster. The poster is supposed to get the idea across, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And get us interested and
Well, yeah, and and we connect with facial expressions, and you look at Anakin there, and that is not a happy boy like jumping through puddles. That's somebody who's got some trouble going on in his life.
yeah.
And everything I think in here is super purposeful. There's some discomfort to it. Like look at the amount of space between him and where it says Star Wars, and they didn't blare Star Wars at all.
Yeah.
Star Wars is like so little in there because they're controlling what they want you to see first.
Yeah.
And like in our North American culture, we tend to see upper left to bottom right, and so they know even though the logo is off to the left, but they know that we're going to see that boy first. And if
that's what they want,
if they hit the mark, then maybe you don't even see the shadow right away, and you're kind of wondering, oh, what's going on here? And then you look at the shadow, and that shadow takes place of that tagline, that wording that's not there. It's the second punch.
Is it? Now that I'm looking at it, is it? I'm wondering. I'm trying to. I don't know if memory serves. I mean, this back in the 90s. Is it though, Evan? It might have been one of the teaser posters, one of the early posters that you might see in the theater before, like months or maybe even years before the movie came out.
Yeah. That's why I think this was the first one I saw. Yeah. And then you have to kind of rely on people going to movies regularly, which back in the 90s you did, right?
Still did, yeah.
Yeah, it was there in the video store. It certainly wasn't any streaming services. So you definitely, I found myself in my 20s, is that right? More and more in theaters, and so they could kind of address my attention with teasers. While today, I don't think you get that same kind of attention. Certainly with the way movie attendance seems to continually be going down. You just have that much less chance to really get people's attention.
Yeah. Before we move forward, is there anything else you wanted to add regarding that one? I mean, it's weird. I kind of like when you first put it on your list, and we discussed a lot of posters. Some we're just not going to have time to get to today, but I was like, really, this one? But the more I thought about it, the more you discussed it, the more I came around to I'm blaming the poster for being a mediocre movie.
Yeah.
Great parking, but it didn't tell me that the restaurant was going to suck.
Well, and
the parkade is going, how is this my problem?
Yeah, exactly. And one big thing I think to acknowledge in this situation, in the Superman situation, in probably many situations that we're going to talk about today, is that they're alienating more people than they're drawing in, because they're assuming people have a base knowledge. They're assuming they know something about Superman, and they're assuming they know something about Star Wars, and that they're not telling a full story here. They're talking to people who understand these worlds. And like, if I didn't know Star Wars, that says nothing to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's intriguing, and design wise, it's kind of fun, but and I think that's definitely a very purposeful choice. But by the time they made that poster, George Lucas had so much money that he didn't care if
And unlike the last Star Wars movie came out in 85, if I remember. The last, the Return of the Jedi. Let me just bear with me.
77, 83.
83, yes. Yeah. So 15 years, but it's not like even now, when somebody says, "Well, I'm unfamiliar with this War of the Stars," it's like, no, you're
Yeah.
not. It is in our cultural. You do. I could maybe believe you didn't see the movie, but you know the movie. You know the series. You know some of the iconography is just become
Yeah.
part of our cultural vernacular. But I think then is so much closer to it and so much hype, like just a huge amount of hype. I don't think I suspect it was, I know that was one of the first online, like you could download the trailer,
Hmm.
but I suspect the local news, like CK&D here, was covering, the new poster and people are talking about, and
Yeah.
so I think he was able to take advantage of just that, 3 channels and everyone competing for what's the big pop culture thing, and hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely. And I think, when you have a love of movies and movie theaters, you love hype. Oh, like they just they know how to pull you in, right? And teasers are some of the greatest things because that they do exactly what they
yeah,
promise. They're going to tease you,
yeah,
and to have that power of
yeah,
there's 10 things to say, but I'm only going to say one thing or two things right
yeah,
now.
yeah. Well,
And it's purposeful,
yeah,
but it has a great effect.
yeah. And to have the cultural cachet, the cultural, the fact everyone's primed for it already, that they can just do that is pretty solid, and that you remember it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
okay, enough of that one. What was your
Okay,
number 4? I
let's
believe it
see.
involved another iconic graphic and a tagline.
Oh, this one.
That's right, everybody. Ghostbusters.
Yes, exactly. Who are you going to call? Not who you going to call, who are you going to call, but
Yeah.
who you're going to call, right? Like, this is not even, when we talked about this, and it's like, it's graphically so solid. It's definitely not by far the best movie poster, but it's still iconic in its own way.
Yeah.
And, if you read the small type, and we talked about this before, how do you convince Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, all of them that, hey, we're going to put you A-listers in a movie, we're not going to show you anywhere.
Yeah.
We're going to show the ghost because people are going to love the ghost.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is
You'll
all
be
about
in the movie
ghosts.
commercial eventually.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And, but you have to talk about merchandising as well, right?
Yeah.
And this poster creates an amazing line of merchandising.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't, like with figures, like all the action figures and all that kind of stuff. But this is just it kind of goes back to just like that simplicity
Yeah.
of the message right in there, and then, the way they use it in Ghostbusters and that. I and I sometimes wonder, when you ask me to choose some of my favorite posters, could I separate out my experience versus design? And I'm not sure I can do
Oh.
that. Yeah.
What, this going back to my Phantom Menace comment and my initial reaction. Bad movie. Why are we even talking about his poster?
Yeah.
Whereas great movie, it's like it may be another mediocrity of a poster that I'll still bump up on the scale
Yeah.
because it reminds me of a great experience.
Exactly. Like I remember seeing Poltergeist, and I honestly, right now, I don't even know if I could conjure my mind what that poster looked like, but because it was a very good movie.
I believe it was just the television, but continue.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
But because it was a good movie, but it was a summer movie, kind of like in the way that Indiana Jones, the first one, well, maybe they all were summer movies. Oh yeah, okay.
There's the image we're looking for.
Yeah, I think sometimes because it's such a good experience, you go back and assign those same values to
Mhm.
everything, and that would include the movie poster because it
Yeah.
was just wonderful, right? Like, and I loved seeing Poltergeist, and Ghostbusters was just so much fun, and so maybe it doesn't represent it, and you maybe almost could have, and I'm sure there was other versions that had the main actors in there, but this just, I don't know, people like ghost stories.
I and how it's survived. They have I'm sure there's been tweaking in all the movies since, but the fundamental graphic has remained, if not unchanged, virtually unchanged.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
and that,
it's like, well, no, we have our brand.
yeah, yeah.
That's done. The rest of it is, well, how do we say this movie's different from the other ones?
Well,
We've
the,
got, but we've got the graphic.
well, okay, and so a great parallel with that would be Jurassic World, where
Oh,
they show somebody working the control room who has a Jurassic Park shirt on. Like, it was such a brilliant moment
yeah,
because that's another graphic that would be right in line with this one.
yeah.
That's so identifiable. And to the point where they actually have one of their actors written into the role that he's wearing a Jurassic Park shirt from the first movie. I thought, oh man, like hats off to the designer. I hope they're loving that moment. So
Yeah, here's the I'm wondering when whoever the poster designer was for Jurassic Park, the graphic artist, the marketing art department, because well, although I think it was incorporated within the movie, so the graphic design in the movie has these images as well. But whoever they were, you got to think it's like they were looking at they are informed by all the other posters that have come before them
mhm. Yeah,
and corporate logos, because that's the other thing with Jurassic Park is it's all a logo,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Right? Yeah, it's no different from Disney marketing Disneyland or Disney World.
Yeah.
It's again promises of fun, and so when I look at the Ghostbusters movie, and I think because they've drawn the ghost in such a way, it just says to you that this is going to be fun. Like, this
Mhm.
isn't a scary movie. This is something that's going to entertain you. And certainly knowing Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, they're not going to do a super straight movie.
Fun for
They're
the whole family.
exactly right, fun for the whole family, and sometimes that's just good enough. And you got to know that people sometimes put together a movie and go, and if somebody says, "Oh, is it going to be an Oscar contender?" and they're just laughing, like,
Yeah.
no, no, we're not. This is a bit above after school special kind of thing, but with A-list actors.
Before Jaws, let's say the year of 1967, where New Hollywood was like, oh my goodness, we've forgotten how to make good movies, but here's a whole bunch of stuff. But before that, like Ghostbusters, I think Jaws really started it, but Ghostbusters is what would otherwise be called a B movie.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, yeah,
Star Wars, all these things are, would have been considered, or, we have prestige pictures, and then we've got the thing that makes us money. But all of a sudden, you move, Jaws happens, the summer blockbuster.
yeah,
Like wow, we could make our whole year on one movie.
yeah, yeah.
One, what would normally be a pretty simple, maybe even ridiculous, like Ghostbusters, that's a ridiculous premise, you
Uh,
know?
Absolutely, right?
Con artists. I mean, what do we got here? Let me look at this again. All right. Yeah, so we got con artists, charlatans, and conspiracy wackadoos. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
there are ghosts. There are. Yeah,
You
we can make a movie out of that.
throw
And
in
just mwah.
throw in any kind of personal journey redemption type movies,
Yeah.
and people will eat it up. And that's how you start with people who kind of are scraping the bottom of the morals of society, and then by the end of the movie they
Or
are
on
the
the
hero.
fringes in other ways.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
something happens to turn them
Yeah.
to from the dark side to the good side.
Even Rick Moranis, that poor tax accountant, tax lawyer. All right.
Right. And just a note
yeah.
here that Rick Moranis wouldn't come back for the Ghostbusters movie, but yet he'll come back for Spaceballs.
You know what? Because the man has taste. Okay, brief aside here. I am definitely, I don't know where you're coming from on this. You know what? There's been a couple of the Ghostbuster movies that they have their moments, but
Yeah.
that need, and you see this in a number of films, maybe even a couple of the films we'll talk about today, but that desperate need to, no, we have to bring these octogenarians, these geriatrics out, because otherwise the fans will be upset. And I gotta admit, I'm like, no, I am okay with revisiting a world.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, Andor, that is first time in a long time where I was excited about what Star Wars was generating. And
yeah,
no old character dragged out at all. No, oh, well, we better make sure we have this. We better make sure we have that. Even the little bit of reference to, some of the motifs, some of the themes, some of the gags, the tropes in other films, just only the slightest hint. And you get something that is true to the world, but totally new. And I think Rick Moranis gets that. Spaceballs he can return to because, come on, it's Spaceballs. It's stupid from the start.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But on that
although
vein,
who knows, maybe he's like, oh, no, I need the money.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, that not that that's ever happened in Hollywood before.
Yeah, no.
But I did see the most recent Ghostbusters. I saw the preview and the poster, and I was excited for it. And I watched it, and I dare say I enjoyed it. And it did pull back one of the actors, right? In a minor way, sort of. Like the plot revolved around him. Yeah, it was fine.
I didn't pan it, but it was like, well, this is fine.
Yeah, but I can't remember who the director.
New.
But I
it
can't remember
was
who the
Ernie
director.
Hudson's character had a pretty active role. But they also, I mean, Dan Aykroyd's character, the Annie, I think she had a brief moment in it.
Yeah.
And the revisiting the station, the New York, and it's like, really? What? Okay, well, whatever.
Was that the most? Oh, that was the most recent.
Yes.
Right? Okay,
yeah.
So I haven't seen that one. I saw the.
You're thinking about Afterlife.
Yes.
Yes, where they have the big magical, including a digital version of a man who's been long passed on.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You know what, Evan, we're getting off topic, and we still got a bit of a list here.
Okay, yeah.
Let's see. Your next, tick that off. Your next one, speaking of wars in the stars and whatnot. But of course, number 3 on your list of your top 5 preferences was Star Wars. And it was this Star Wars poster.
Yeah.
What I would say, definitely the artist's version.
Mm-hmm.
What made this one work for you? Why is it iconic?
Again, I think a lot of it comes
in the bare midriff and the cut, the abs.
Well, absolutely. And, if you...
Frizzetti of it all.
Yeah. And, it wasn't atypical to kind of movies, but it wasn't a typical movie unto itself, right? Because it was groundbreaking, but that doesn't matter because until you've seen the movie, you don't know what it's about. And so you have to have something that draws you in. And, I think that it just created a different world in a exciting way. It's probably not that different from like a Conan the Barbarian poster.
No.
Right?
Yeah,
but it just shows you that it's another world. Oh my God, there's droids. And there's the strong male, and of course the female is slightly
draped over.
Right, and showing a heck of a lot of leg, and
way more than
dramatic.
Princess Leia actually ever showed until the third movie.
Oh, so that's another thing I found really interesting, because when I saw Star Wars in 1977, I was 9 years old, and it was just an amazing movie. It blew my mind. But by the time the next one came out, it's funny how it just coincided that at a time where I was starting to notice girls, all of a sudden you had Princess Leia in like the smallest bikini. And it's just like, is this planned or what? Or I know there's a lot of controversy around that. But anyway, I just found that this, villains are so integral to a movie, and I'd never seen outside of some really cheesy stuff like that kind of helmet, and it's like, well, what is this character all about? And even within the movies, they love to portray their villains larger than life when they show them on holograms, and they're massive, right? Like it's just some wonderful visual tricks to make you cower in their presence, kind of thing. But then, design wise, you have these two characters, and they're brightly lit, and they're against the background. There's no doubt that this is a story of heroes and villains, and that it's going to entertain you.
For me, I wanted to ask you about this one. Like, for me, I always this is the one I gravitated to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, I want to get your take on this look. It is also another artist's, like, what I find fascinating about both of these posters is they're both artists' renditions.
Yes.
They're not, hey, let's take some pictures and, it's not a still, an enhanced still or some optical effects. It's still a time when artists would paint.
Absolutely. And you know what, like, if you've ever had the chance to see any of the concept artwork for Star Wars, there's books on it. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. And so that the first poster is much closer to what the artist concepts were like versus this one, where they actually knew who the actors were, and could kind of piece all that together. Like if you look at this crew, not many of them were like super well known outside of Alec Guinness.
I believe you're talking about books like Star Wars, The Magic of Myth.
Yes.
And it's got all the nonsense and graphic stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And
just one of my many BS books about movies.
Okay,
anyway,
absolutely.
Sorry, back to you, sir.
Well, but because they were making things up day by day on the go, they relied on the concept art greatly for inspiration. And, when they talk about how they built the Death Star and how they built the flying spaceships, they were just finding things and putting them together. And that original art was a big inspiration for how the movie looked. And so that's a case of the artist driving part of the story and how things came together. Like, I know a lot of it was in George Lucas's head, and he had the help of the visual artist to put that on paper, which then brought the team together to create this magical universe.
Well, it's such a big part of, even now, there's still artists you can hire now. I could hire on Fiverr to do character design.
Mm-hmm.
Where you kind of go, especially for sci-fi or fantasy, you can't just, or you look really obviously derivative and generic.
Yeah.
Even AI, where it's like, I see all the things.
Yeah.
You really do. And this is maybe part of his Lucas working with these artists, creating original, like,
Yeah.
there's plenty of, there's plenty of documentaries. It's well documented, all the references that Lucas used to create Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
At
Like
the
the old
same
war
time,
films and
yeah,
stuff, right? And
but at the same time, show me an X-Wing pre
yeah.
Star
Yeah.
Wars. Show me a Death Star pre Star Wars.
Yeah.
The droid pre Star Wars, like R2D2. None of these things, and I think that it's one of the things that the poster. Let's say go back to we'll go back to your choice here. Really sort of captures or tries to capture in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And something else I find really fascinating too is that, yeah, like they created worlds out of this. But there's the limitations of the technology of the time, right? Special effects were such a different creature. But so here we have.
Well, and even graphic design, I would imagine, like, well, you were 9.
I don't know.
Letraset.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And like tracing letters and stuff like that. But so on the Star Wars posters, they have the villain in there. And I think that's where Superman fails, is that they're focusing on the hero
The guy.
and not showing the antagonist.
Not the conflict.
They're not showing the conflict, right? And Star
or at
Wars,
least promising that a man can fly.
yeah. And Star Wars doesn't hide that. Like it's good versus evil.
Yeah.
But think of a character like Darth Vader. So, like you say, these characters had never been invented before. So somebody had been tasked with creating an outfit for a character that something had happened to. For some reason, he's hiding in the suit, but we don't know why. We don't know for quite a few movies. And when they did reveal why he was in that suit, it was amazing. That blew me away. Yeah. But so, right? Yeah, like that whole scene where they're rebuilding him and putting his components together and the helmet comes down.
Of course, now some middle-aged schmuck in Winnipeg can just, I can press a button and fake that right now.
Okay, but you just said it. Buttons. Like his control panel are these big, clunky, they looked good in 1977, but they certainly don't look good in the 2000s, but yet they respected that.
What? And if you go into the production design of Andor, because it's kind of bound with that very physical clicky switch kind of thing, rocker switches, the metal, like ka-chunk of it all.
Yeah.
But given it is interesting. I mean, my mixer has faders because sometimes you just want to be able to move a dial to feel the tactileness of it. And so for a thing that should even now look, because they're kind of bound by that first one that sets a time frame, it never feels dated, even the new stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to that poster again, I think the remarkable thing that gets overlooked is the lightsaber. Like that might have been the greatest science fiction invention of a weapon, right? Yeah. Because it's not a blaster like she's holding. And I always laughed in Star Trek where they had small blasts, like small ones and big ones, yet both could kill somebody. It's like, well, what's the difference? But the lightsaber is the symbol of the Jedi. And so this one shows the blasters and
it's all blasters. Whereas
but that other one has the wrong color for Darth Vader. And any Star Wars purist knows you gotta have the right colors.
Yeah,
good versus evil. There's no gray area. You don't go to the store and
red
say
versus blue.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But so right there in Darth Vader's eye, right, and that's obviously purposeful. Is that blast or that the gleam.
Flash of the it's almost the Oh, the where the hilt and the pommel and the blade meet, that cross, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost, who's the director who did all the Star Trek movies where he did those light ellipses?
Oh, the all the lens flares,
Yeah,
J.J.
the lens flares.
Abrams.
Yes, right.
And
That don't
helped
exist.
drive the franchise of Star Wars into the ground. It's,
Yeah.
7 through 9.
See,
Sorry, but yeah, the king of the lens flare.
yeah, right. Which is like, it's ridiculous in a way, because
Yeah.
that would show that you're watching a story taking place through a camera lens. It's like it's
Yeah.
revealing that, you know, this is shot that way. But at the same time, we just got used to it.
Well, and here it is in poster form. You know, that's really what we're looking at, is the
Yeah.
lens flare.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we can count how many blades on the iris. All right. You know what? Let's keep the machine moving forward here.
Yeah.
Let me get that nonsense off of there, and maybe actually look at you instead of off to the side.
Yeah.
Our next one, number 2, and this is an interesting one. Tell us about It's Alive.
I know this one
This
kind of
creepy ass, like truly brilliant, creepy ass story or poster.
I hope right now some people are out there going, I saw that. I remember that poster. You know, I always believe in the power of design, and the power of Darth Vader. But anyway, the power of design to, again, tell a story. And this one is a beautiful example of hierarchy.
Wait a second,
right?
I've got an effect for you there. I can't believe I denied you. There you go. That's what that deserved.
Fantastic. That means everything to me. Anyway, so hierarchy, right? Like, they want you to see what they want you to see first, right? And, you know, it's such a starking black and white image of that baby bassinet, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you see that, and then you see big, bold lettering, It's Alive. And then it's kind of a bit of a choice of, what do you read next? Is it the one film that you should not see alone, which is like brilliant writing, right? Because it's like, it's a dare. And
Yeah.
we, you know, in the way we talked about, you know,
Well, even the top line, there's only one thing wrong with the Davis baby.
well, yeah, right. And
It's alive.
exactly. And they want you to see It's Alive first, and then read There's Only One Thing Wrong, right? And it's kind of like we're used to baby announcements. And, you know, it's a boy, it's a girl, but you never hear It's Alive, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that that's a bad thing. And then, you know,
in that lurid red.
yeah, exactly. And then you notice this strange shadow across the carriage.
Yeah.
And you see this claw-like hand, and that's enough, right? You know something is going on. And yes, you've been dared. That, can you stand seeing, well, hopefully, can you stand seeing this movie because it's so scary? But maybe
you better bring someone.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Of all the movies you're going to see alone, better not be this one. You're asking for trouble.
How brilliant is that? Like, it's not a 2-for-1 coupon. It's a bring somebody, double our revenue.
Yeah.
Like, I dare you to not bring someone. And not many people go to movies alone to begin with, but they're just taunting you. And so there's some very classic design techniques in there, with, I think, some brilliant writing. Just you know, if we want to talk about a movie poster as being a teaser, this is the ultimate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, you're right. Like, you're just, so what's the deal? What's going to happen? Now, I want to bring up this. So we've got this one, and I as soon as I saw it in your bundle of posters that, you know, we were going to kind of frame our conversation, it was only looking at the poster that I was reminded, oh, it's not this movie, because I swear to God, I think of that poster image and I think of Rosemary's Baby.
Absolutely.
You know, which is kind of mind-blowing. And that's only because if you look really, well, here, so this came out in 1968, and there's a much younger Mia Farrow in the background, but of course it's the pram, which has got some of the same shape as, It's Alive, this creepy thing.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm amazed at how the poster, not the film itself, but the poster has all of a sudden they fused together. And of course, yeah, the It's Alive folks must have been thinking, oh yeah, we know what we're doing.
Well, I think it's time we bring out kind of like the dirty word in design, and that's formula. Like, they know, right? There's typefaces you use and typefaces you don't use. Although somebody went ahead and you used papyrus on a major movie, but for
and
sure,
to never be used again.
Exactly. Like we talked about Star Wars. George Lucas, using frame by frame scenes from World War II footage to create his battle scenes. So if something works. And let's not even go into Hallmark Christmas movie posters, because it's meeting expectations.
There's one Hallmark movie Christmas poster. They have a template.
Right. Exactly. Same color palette, same fonts, all of that. But so what you're pointing out here, I think, is definitely, they're like, well, okay, so that people are already used to the idea of this kind of evil existing. Let's bring it back. But we're going to tell it in our own way. So
there. Well, I want to come back to that idea of formula, and there is we're forever referencing and kind of taking advantage, whether it be a self-reference like the Phantom Menace poster, or this, it's like, well, our movies are unrelated, but it's also taking stock of the iconography of the time, the pop culture iconography. There's all these symbols, but also what we talked about at the beginning of the show, it's like they're all trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And you only have this 18 by 24 one sheet.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these started off as books that, also had to solve a problem. They had to sell their story to people and entice them in. When you're walking by a poster, you have 2-3 seconds. It's no different from driving by a billboard on the street. And, they have to think about what do they want to say in 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And, if you pause and actually read it, that's great, but that's probably not the typical experience.
Well, I'm wondering, like, this comes to almost like use case. So if we look closely, as closely as we can, here, I'll put this back up here. I can imagine reading this, like the color and the bassinet, kind of stops you, the It's Alive, but it stops you in a theater or in the line outside the theater, because that was a thing when this movie came out in 1974.
Yeah.
So you'd stop in the line, you would then maybe, like, you'd talk about it. You'd go, well, what, oops, not that one. Sorry. Here we go. This is the movie we're talking about. You would read it.
Yeah.
It's certainly not something you'd drive by. They wouldn't have it on some big billboard, some portrait style billboard driving by, but you would read that in the theater or in the line. You go, oh, that's, I'm sorry, but that's pretty creepy.
Exactly.
And if you like to be scared, it'd be like, well, that might deliver the right level of creepy for me.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to see that baby kill.
Oh, yeah, right. Exactly. And I
or the alien or whatever.
And I had contemplated kind of throwing into the mix why am I blanking on it? Kind of the ultimate horror movie of the 70s.
I'm listening.
Yeah, and I'm thinking. I keep thinking Blair Witch Project, but that's not right. With what's her name? Blair.
Oh, Linda Blair. No,
Yeah,
no,
Linda Blair.
I can pull that up. Just a second here. You had it
Yeah,
on your original list, and
yeah.
I'm still a little shocked. It did not. It didn't make it. That would be The Exorcist.
Sorry, yeah, The Exorcist.
Oh,
Which, okay, and again, this is not only the power of design, but the way you can kind of control the narrative. If you put different type up there, you could change the mood of the poster so quickly. Just like it's creating intrigue, but take away the title, and it's a beautiful, beautiful image, right?
yeah.
It's
It's still
Instagram
telling a story.
yeah,
Like,
it's
you
telling
want
a
to know what
story.
he's looking at.
Yeah,
You
but this is
want
kind
to
of
know
like
why he's there.
you
But
want to
the
know why he's there.
title
This
is,
is the
oh, I think he's the exorcist.
yes, yeah, right, yeah. This is the calm before the storm,
Yeah.
and it's brilliantly done, I think.
What
And
scares an exorcist? Why is he paused?
yeah, yeah, right. It's not him mid stride. It's
Yeah.
like him contemplating, am I going to come out of here?
He's not a Ghostbuster jumping out with his power pack on.
No, no, right. As a quick aside, the best kind of parody I've ever seen done on The Exorcist was done with Shrek. There's like a Halloween collection that they did with the Shrek characters, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
hilarious. It's him; he's the exorcist, and Pinocchio is Linda Blair, the one who's possessed. And it's
All right. You know what? If I can find that,
yeah,
I'll pin a link to it.
okay,
All right. Let's keep moving.
yeah.
Is there? But before we do that, anything else you wanted to add to It's Alive, and maybe even thinking about Rosemary's Baby.
Okay, well, remember this layout before we get to the next one.
Okay. All right, folks, you heard the man. We need to remember this layout. This is what's important here.
Think symmetry.
Okay. Yes. Okay, good. Good point. Just let me all right. The next one is actually, never mind the next one. It is the one.
Oh yeah, the one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is number one on your list, and that is a little movie that we may have covered, folks, that we may have covered recently. I'll pin a link to Jim and I's deep discussion. It is his
Okay.
favorite film.
Yeah.
Not many people have heard of it. A tiny little indie that struggled to, back in 1975, struggled to get any kind of attention, from the critics or audiences.
Yeah.
And that would be
Do you have
a
a sound
tiny
effect?
little film called...
Do you have a sound effect? Oh. Jaws. Yes, absolutely. And maybe there's some people going, yeah, I predicted that. That would be the one. And yeah, it's simple, but I love this. I love this poster because it's again, we're solving a problem and that we're telling a story, but there's just certain elements of it that just thrill me. And I know I mentioned this to you before, and I don't want to spoil anyone's movie poster experience, but the laws of motion, depending on how fast that shark is swimming and how fast she's swimming, he might actually miss her, or he's just going to get a foot, which I guess actually does happen, right?
Yeah.
But it's just everything is like the previous poster. Everything is symmetrical. It's top to bottom, and from
Here, let me put that one back up for a second there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, look how everything lines up, her eye to the carriage, to the deep despair of the darkness.
Yeah.
And then you finally get
And even at the midline.
Yeah.
Or just shy of the midline. If we're only looking at the poster from just the graphic, not including the credit block at the
Mhm.
bottom. You know, it's literally just below the center line.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so
Back to Jaws. Back
yeah,
to
so
Jaws.
so here again, we don't necessarily have the hero, but we have the innocent person
Yeah.
and the villain, right?
Yeah.
There's no hiding the villain, and sharks were feared anyway, and they were unfortunately really demonized through the
Oh yeah.
movie, uh,
became an
and they've never quite
became an
recovered.
endangered species almost overnight because of a movie.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they became the Russia of the movies, right?
Yeah.
Like the KGB. They were the bad guys.
Shark Week.
Oh
Because of
yeah,
this. How does anyone know Shark Week?
yeah, yeah.
Why was jumping the shark a thing? Because of Jaws. Oh, must
Right?
be dangerous. We've all seen Jaws. How can we
Yeah.
get Fonzie and how can Happy Days get some of that Jaws action?
Oh, another brilliant moment in TV history. And we talked about this as well in that, and it probably does go back to the book and the naming, but I don't think you really think about it, but the name, it's Jaws, and like it's got pointiness to it, and the W
Yeah.
is, there's nothing friendly about it at all, right? And
Yeah.
it's actually, it's got teeth in it, like a shark would.
Yeah.
But they didn't call it shark, or they didn't call it attack.
Yeah.
They called it Jaws, which is a really unobvious name, and I give kudos to whoever thought that's the name. Like that's what we're
And
calling
it could
this.
very well have been just some publisher, like an editor or something, kind of going, shark, no. Shark
Yeah.
Week, no.
Yeah.
No. No.
Like, yeah.
Jaws. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because when you dig deep into a movie, you realize how many of them, like the titles changed. Like Star Wars was not Star Wars, or
Yeah.
or it was like sometimes the creator of the movie has to fight for that title because
Yeah.
sometimes they just put stupid stuff as the title.
Yeah.
But Jaws is brilliant because it's big, it's bold, it's legible, and it's the words are attacking you, just like the shark is about to
Yeah.
attack her.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the design, she is between the
Yeah.
red word and the jaws from beneath.
Yeah.
She truly is stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly, with nowhere to go, and so nothing really good can come of this.
Yeah.
Not with a shark that size.
However, however unreal, like this is, I think, one of the great things about film, but graphic design, any of this stuff, it's like, this isn't scientific illustration.
Mhm. Yeah.
No one's out there going, these proportions don't make any sense at all. The teeth aren't that big.
Yes. Yeah.
How would
Exactly.
this animal survive? And my
Yeah.
goodness, they're not that wide.
But although we've
And
seen
that
things,
woman didn't look like she was swimming that way. That's not healthy at all.
oh, right, exactly. But it also shows again the power of the cinema in that became people's base knowledge of shark behavior.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so many repercussions against the world of sharks afterwards, because it was so convincing that what they were showing us was reality.
Yeah.
And so the poster doesn't shy away from that. And so again, right or wrong, that's what the poster's saying to us. That's what the movie ultimately said to us. Yeah. And that's our reality of our relationship with sharks these days.
Well, and it is interesting let's say for It's Alive, I mean, I think of a better movie when I think of that poster. I'm sure it was effective. It did what it needed to do.
Yeah.
But no one talks about It's Alive.
Yeah.
Star Wars people still talk about Jaws, of course. I mean, it was the thrust of our whole video Jim and I did. Our whole deep dive was, why are we still talking about this movie? But this is one of those a few of these cases where it's like, wow, the movie and the poster, is making a promise, and the movie totally delivered.
Yeah, and that's the job of the designer is to make that promise. And I know we talked about examples from the designer Saul Bass and the iconic not only movie posters that he did, but the title sequences. And he did so much because the people felt he was representing the story so well. Like he just got it right. Yeah. And I rewatched The Man.
Here's an iconic one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I before we set to talk today, I rewatched the opening credits of the Man with the Golden Arm.
Yeah,
and they're just beautiful. Like it's this disruptive jazz, and it just everything blends so well together. And I know they talk about how there's so many tributes to him with something like I remember seeing Catch Me If You Can, and just loving
another great iconic, a mix of that and Pink Panther title sequences.
I was thinking about that today because my family, my parents always used to take us to the Pink Panther movies, and what opened for Pink Panther? The cartoons, right? Yeah, and wonderful experiences.
Here, let me see if I can't. Yeah, second thing on the list, title sequence, Man with the Golden Arm. Like, I'll throw just a little bit of this. You won't. I'll have to turn it off so that we don't get in too much of a jam. But at least people will be able to hear, see a bit of what we're talking about here. All right, let's. Evan won't be able to hear it, but he's seen it before. But this sound, this music, this just bang. All right, everybody. Not that I'm a monetized operation, but this would guarantee demonetization if I play it any longer. I will put, folks, a link to this in the I'll pin it at a top comment or something.
Yeah. And I just love it because it starts telling the story right from the start, or starts setting the mood, and you see that spilling over into title sequences for things like Mad Men, and various TV shows where they actually they do some really cool things with
David Fincher films. Have great title sequences. I don't think I would say his movie posters are iconic.
Yeah. But Saul Bass
Fight Club. Saul Bass. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. But so for Saul Bass, good design should be anonymous. Right? Like it should communicate the message without knowing who the artist was. Saul Bass was a completely different situation where he became famous because of his interpretations. So all of a sudden you're introducing style, like known style to this. And that may or may not actually help to sell a movie, but that's a whole different approach. And I've seen it in the design world many times where designers exist on their style and they're hired for their style. And when that style gets old, they're gone, kind of thing. And even he, at one point, people weren't hiring him to do movie titles anymore. And he was fine with that, right? Because he had his time doing that, and he had enough other areas of interest to keep working at. But I still think the design of the poster should be standalone. It should just have to do with the story, and that's it. And the designer should almost never be known in a way.
Yeah, I do want to, before, I mean, we're going late. Do you have a bit more time? Because I
Yeah,
got a
yeah, I
couple.
do.
Okay, great. I did want to bring up a couple. I mean, I've got a million favorites, but there's only a couple more. I think you've kind of said so much already, but I want to maybe talk about where maybe things are going and how they still sort of refer back. Um, I saw this on made by a great artist, graphic designer, Clio award-winning artist behind the name SG Posters. Young Miss Steinbach here. She had this killer poster. Let me see if I can't let me bring it up. Where are we here? Ah, there we go. She did it for an indie, anesthesia,
Hmm.
and I automatically, my friend, I was like arrested by this poster Ms. Steinbach did, but I also immediately thought of Lolita,
Yes.
and even went further. And this is weird kind of thing you kind of circle down. And not only did I think, Evan, of Lolita, but I was like, oh, that was one of the original posters. Because when I think of Lolita, I think of this poster,
Yeah.
this reference. Stanley Kubrick, bold, the name, the iconic shot of the woman, of the girl,
Hmm.
the girl, and but here is a modern, not just a modern take on it, but still very much a classic movie poster. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Why do you think? Is it just in a way the reference? Is it like, I think there's just some great work there. I think I would have been attracted to it anyway, and a
Hmm.
little creeped out, which I think is the intent.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
what's your thought on the anesthesia, the poster first?
Well, first of all, I give them high marks for actually naming a movie Anesthesia that most people have trouble pronouncing, including myself, and probably could never spell.
Yeah.
um, I completely agree. Like it's interesting, right? Because the photograph or the composition is really quite beautiful, but it's very unsettling.
Yeah.
And you want to look at it and go, why? Why is it bothering me? And it's like they're making you kind of work to figure it out. Just the
Yeah.
way the bodies are situated, the moment that they, you always think that, oh, they just captured that moment, but no,
Yeah.
this is set up. They're like, we want you to act like this, we want you to look
Yeah.
like this, this is purposeful, right? But a good poster will make you think that you're glimpsing in, you're like spying a moment of somebody's life, and they have no idea that you're on the outside looking
Yeah.
in. And then just sort of that uncomfortable use of the type, like really understated, "You're safe, honey. Mama just has a question." Right? Like it's like that right there. Like if you weren't kind of freaked out before that, you are now. But you're also intrigued. Like, so here we are. We're getting this really intimate view of something going on.
Yeah. Well,
It's not.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not.
here's the zoomed in version. It's like, so anesthesia, film by Jeff Osborne. You're safe,
Yeah.
honey. Mama just has a question. Another one of those moments where you're like, you stop. What I did.
Yeah. I might
I
challenge.
stopped as I was scrolling.
Yeah.
I need to know more.
I might challenge you that it actually reminds you more of It's Alive.
Huh. Could be.
Right? It's kind of like, yeah, it's like, okay, people on a beach. You have expectations of people on a beach. It's usually a happy moment when somebody's lying there, mother and son kind of thing.
Yeah.
But again, it's just, there's a twist. Something's wrong.
Are you safe?
Are you
boy,
safe?
Run,
right?
boy.
Right.
Run.
Yeah. And so one of the references that like the two references you showed, like I don't doubt that there's some form of flattery involved, kind of a tribute to what was done in the past, because
Yeah.
I feel there's some sense of formula there. And this one, Lolita,
Yeah.
really reminds me of the album cover by the Cars of Candio,
Oh,
right? Same
yeah.
same kind of enticing. You got the red, like the vibrant
Yeah.
red, and
The
that, and
lipstick, the lollipop, with all
right?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather
So
disturbing imagery.
no, but what sometimes I love it that it's kind of like when you get a song that mimics another, and they go, "Oh no, our song is 100% original," and then you get other people who go, "This is a tribute too," and we actually
Yeah.
are going to put it in the credits, and
Yeah.
I respect that. And design can exist in the same way. I think it's okay for designers to say, "You know what? We learned a lot from this
Yeah.
poster, and this is kind of our interpretation of it." I think
Yeah.
that's an honest approach.
What and what's interesting, if we look at what certainly is the original, the original, or of course not the original, like somebody's cleaned stuff up and everything, but here's a poster that somebody who saw the movie or saw it being advertised in the theater when it came out back in the, was it late 60s, early 70s? Um, Look at the tagline here. It's like it just oozes
Yeah.
lurid. Like,
Yes.
how did they ever make a movie of Lolita? This scandalous,
Yep.
this scandalous
Yeah.
story, dealing with really kind of dark and challenging subject matter,
Yeah.
and not in
Yeah.
a horror way, more, well, the horror of real life at times. And, you know, yeah, we made a movie. Of course, part of me is like, well, because they could make money off of it.
Well, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it is all about money, right? But I would challenge your audience to, to after listening to this, think of what your favorite movie poster is, and look it up, and really try and identify what drew you into it.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised. You might find something that you never really consciously noticed before. But it was just like, it's kind of like, you say you love pizza, but is it the ingredients or is it everything together? And sometimes it's an ingredient that pulls you in because you identify with that ingredient. And it's no different in a poster that, like I love writing. I love short, brilliant writing.
Mhm.
And so that "You're safe, honey. Mama just has a question." Like, like honey, mama, like those are soft words, right?
Yeah,
But it's building such tension with
yeah,
that. And then her expression,
yeah,
and then the red lips,
yeah.
and
Oh,
right? Yeah,
well,
yeah,
and look at like, he's got that teal thing on his clothing, right? And the if you look at the the old-timey mask, like, even
yeah.
the chair she's sitting in, it's like, what are we, in the south of France in 1952? You know?
Yes, yes, yeah,
The big ass mask, no cheap goggles for this boy.
yeah. And then the prevalence of the seagull,
Yeah.
right?
W
Like, and sometimes,
which, if you zoom in, if you just look at the poster, let me bring it up again, bear with me. It looks like a digital arrow,
yeah, right?
like a glitch, like there's
Yeah.
something unreal back to
Hmm.
that whole, what is going on here?
And that's purposeful.
Yeah,
It's as purposeful as the writing.
yeah,
And there could be symbolism, there could be whatever, but
yeah,
they're using it as a device to
yeah,
help build a story, and create the atmosphere that they want you to think
yeah.
about. But
Like,
it's interesting because that's the only non-static thing on the poster.
yeah.
It's kind of set in place or blurred in the background, but I want to see.
It's also it's in focus, or to a degree, at least the head is, and she's in focus.
Yeah.
You look at Mama and
Yeah.
also that very kind of almost waxy sort of Instagrammy kind of complexion,
Yeah.
you know? Um, yeah, uh, it's gotta be a horror. So well, going back to its effectiveness, it's like, "Oh, that's gonna be creepy. It's gonna be creepy."
Yeah.
It it's
Yeah.
psychological horror or just straight up horror, maybe some sci-fi horror,
Yeah.
it's gonna be creepy and disturbing and will make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or
So,
that's the promise the poster is making.
yeah.
If the movie doesn't deliver that, now is it one of those things where you say, "Well, that's the movie's fault,"
Yeah.
or is it, "Hey, you made the wrong promise?"
Absolutely, right?
Yeah,
And that's the designer's responsibility.
yeah,
And unfortunately, in design, you always want to create the best that you can,
yeah.
and you always hope you're not overselling. But as I mentioned to you earlier, I have purchased many books, judging the cover, and they've turned out to be terrible books. But the cover was beautiful, and
Yeah,
things like crackers and pasta, total disappointment on the inside, but on the outside, you feel like you're buying into an experience.
I'm my own creative projects, well, I've always been fascinated with posters, and then as I got into the podcast, well, I gotta make my own. I'm making my own thumbnails and everything, but it's in the writing and, you got a lot of writers who are, complain, "Oh, the book cover is so important now," and I'm like, I'm thinking about it, even when I bought it in the store, you know what? That cover is what first motivated me to look at the back.
Yeah,
Like, especially, I was into sci-fi and sci-fi fantasy. Yeah, ooh, that's cool,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
exactly. But
Um,
it's not like there's an expression out there like you can't judge a book by its cover.
well,
But
it's almost like, is that something now I'm wondering, a question for you as a graphic designer, but maybe I did mention it to, Eileen that, "Oh, we were gonna talk about this in this, podcast," but I'll ask you both, did you guys invent that so that you weren't blamed? It's like, "Whoa, I'm just doing the wrapper here.
sorry. The union
Judge."
does not allow me to comment on that. Oh, well, look at the time.
Listen, I have one more question, and then we should wrap this up.
Yeah,
But if you can bear with me, take a one look at one more thing.
yeah,
Uh, of course, yeah. For me, it's all about the thumbnail. That is the video creator's poster,
hmm
and at least now, right now, it really is about the. It's well. Here, I'll bring up. This is the last. Here's the last thumbnail I had to make um, a video I'm just editing now, and that's for our See It or Skip It review of F1,
ah,
the movie, and so there it is. And in many respects, yeah, this is kind of how I do it, Evan. A lot of times, it's like, okay, I need an iconic still. Or sometimes the poster, they like this one was designed in landscape. Like it's a 19 it's a HD ready poster.
wow, yeah,
16 by 9
yeah,
yeah, 16:9 aspect ratio. Um But of course I modified it because
yeah.
I'm like, because here's the, and not just, I did not just slapping my logo on it. Here's the actual, this is the actual image.
Hmm,
Um, and I was, for a thumbnail, like, I'm like, oh, I need it brighter.
yeah,
I kind of like I did the vignetting because I want our logo to pop, but also don't want the logo to interfere with the main image, which is the F1 Brad Pitt, the car.
Yes.
Like so I've got that kind of tension, that I've got to resolve, eh? But when I
Mhm.
look at this, I'm going, is this the future of movie posters?
Ah,
You know, is it because I mean, I would argue that we're looking at it on our phone. This has got a different kind of color palette going on. It's got that sort of uh, washed out. Nothing's like, where's the saturation? Where's damn it? It should scream off the phone.
well,
But
I,
I'm wondering what you think of not just this one, but where you think the movie poster is going. Is it going widescreen, or is it going back to that? Where it's like, no, the poster's still got plenty of life. We just spent 20 minutes talking about a poster for a film. It's going to be a short film, probably some calling card thing that no one's going to talk about.
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I used to work beside
I don't mean
somebody.
no one's going to talk about going back to the Buddy's film, Mr. Osborne's film. It's a short film. Lots of people see it. I'm looking forward to finding it and seeing it when it comes out.
Me too.
But
Yes,
it
yeah.
is not going to hit the numbers that F1 already has.
So when I look at this, it reminds me of that. I used to work beside somebody who, whenever there was a upcoming movie that they were really excited about, they would download the wallpaper, and that would be the
Yeah,
download it as wallpaper, and that would be the wallpaper on their computer.
yeah,
And this has that feel to me. It's like you can see the sea of icons of your desktop,
yeah,
all around it, and Brad Pitt, who is a brand unto himself,
yeah,
is undisturbed.
yeah,
And so to me, it functions in that way. But design has to be about function. And if I am if I was designing an icon to go on like a streaming service like Netflix or Prime or Apple TV, this doesn't work except for maybe the top banner,
yeah.
like for the primo spot, but it has to be functional. So I look at this and I go, okay, so it does actually work because you can just cut it off on either side of the F1, and then
Yeah.
you've got your vertical.
Yeah.
So it functions in that way. But I think we're being forced more and more into the user interface that we all deal with online, and that's a portrait orientation square at
Yeah.
best.
Well,
And
and I'm thinking if you look at your carousel on a streaming service, sometimes you'll get the poster, but most of the time it's really simple title
yeah,
that'll
yeah.
take up like half of the portrait.
Mm-hmm.
And then like sometimes you can almost see the algorithm trying to guess what I'll like. And I'm like, yeah, I might find that actor appealing, but she's barely in that movie.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's
yeah.
showing it to me because it's like, here is a still or one of the production stills, one of the promo stills, but it's like totally like that isn't design. That's
Yeah, no,
pick image, put title, churn until somebody clicks.
it's formula again.
Yeah.
It's it's working off what's worked in the past,
Yeah.
and adapting it slightly to
Yeah.
your use. And I'll call it the example of take a season-winning NFL team. So they don't start the beginning of the season and create brand new plays and run those and win by those. They're constantly looking at what's worked in the past and what doesn't work in the past, and stealing plays from other teams. So
iterate.
it's a culmination of the best of the best. Yeah. And so when it comes to grabbing your attention on a streaming service screen, you're looking at what works, what captures people's attention. How big should the heads be? How big should the type be? Do you even have secondary wording? And now, you hover over it and you get the video going. And I think that's
Yeah.
that's the next step they're trying to get people
Yeah.
towards.
I just want you to be curious about the movie.
Yeah.
You know?
So then me, it becomes more about the actor and less about the story.
Yeah.
And there's so many movies I've watched where I've just enjoyed so much because I don't know any of the actors, and typically they're foreign movies. But those come from personal recommendations. They don't come from me wanting to see the latest A-list star in a movie, which I'm guilty of that. I'll see an A-list star and go, "Ooh, they're in there. It's got to be good."
When you go back to the formula,
Yeah,
and let's say it's used as a pejorative, and I'm kind of using it that way in this right now, generic.
yeah,
If we go back to this, it's a cool shot. He's a cool guy. Race cars are cool.
yes, yeah,
That said, there is nothing about this that is promising me anything other than what I expect. It's like,
yeah,
oh, I'll see a cool cars race. He'll be cool. It'll be fine.
yeah.
And
Underline
spoiler alert,
fine.
we had a good time. It's a perfectly fine movie.
Yeah,
There's a couple of interesting things to note, but more from a film form perspective, not really. No one's walking out of that movie going, wow. They're going, oh, that was pretty good.
but
Whereas, going back to this, I'm like, the poster alone, I want to know more.
yeah,
Heck, I can just appreciate it for the poster. So I'm going to answer the question I asked you. I am going to say that actually there still is for great poster work, especially if you want to, if you're not making this, and let's be honest, most people aren't, they don't have the 150 million or higher budget. I
yeah,
think this is around 100 million. Whatever, that's a frighteningly large amount of money,
yeah.
you know. You don't have that, then you need to work harder, do more interesting things, and who knows? I don't know if this movie will work out. Could be a total disaster, but it'll be a long time before I forget that poster.
But F1, that poster, I think actually works
Yeah,
because I know a
it
ton of people.
achieves its objective. Yes.
Yeah, but the objective I think is a bit confusing in that I know a ton of people who, like, again, F1 could be a religion and they would sign up.
Yeah.
But they're not the ones
But they
going to
don't
see
need a
this.
poster.
They don't. They shouldn't go see this movie because right from the start, like anyone I know who loves F1 and has actually gone to a race, even with their deep knowledge of it and their love of the sport, there's nothing like F1 until you're at an event. It's supposedly just unbelievably crazy and loud and emotional even.
Yeah.
This poster isn't going for that. This poster is selling Brad Pitt, and they want the people who are more interested in Brad Pitt's story than seeing very cool footage of because they could have shown that. They could have shown so many different ways, like so many different views of the race to really generate that excitement. But to me, it's just like that's secondary to the plot. It's about him. He's older. He shouldn't be racing the car. You've certainly heard the feedback.
Yeah. Well,
So I think it succeeds, and it's beautifully designed. And if that had been Matthew McConaughey, the shirt would have been off, right?
Yeah.
But it's Brad Pitt. You can see the muscles, and he's obviously in good shape. So
that is one of the reasons I suggested the movie to my co-host Jim. Is we've been talking about these iconic movie stars, the folks that for a nice long time are like, I can open your movie. If it's going to be about a person, pick me.
yeah,
And they are, well, I don't want to say, he's 61.
Yeah. Yeah.
Handsome. That son of a.
Hey, you know enough about lighting that you can like make
Yeah,
abs look
yeah,
better
no.
with,
It's
with the right
even
lighting.
with all the take away all the lighting and all the makeup and
Yeah.
all the other stuff. He's
Yeah.
still a handsome. Um,
Uh,
but it is the actually apropos of a different video. I saw another creator in the film tube space talking about body film. And we've talked about a couple, horror films, how they engage you viscerally. I would argue, and of course, there's a lot of advertising for this film. One of the things I enjoyed, it's still one of the only video games I own, are racing video games.
oh, yeah.
And in the movie, in what is otherwise, in many respects, a pretty standard story of the callow youth, he needs guidance from an older hand who's on his way out.
Yeah.
It is my smart remark in the review is it's like, well, what did you think of Bull Durham F1 edition?
Or Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, it is, but the racing scenes are visceral. Like they're your body and the sound and everything. It's just like, it's
exhausting, right?
Go see it in the theater. Oh yeah, even moving your feet a little, like you're getting like it's and why for us it's like we're not saying it's the greatest thing ever, but we were kind of going, it's worth seeing, and it's we may be going in a totally different way. We may not be seeing these kind of stars ever again. Why not enjoy one more ride with Brad Pitt in taking full advantage of what the modern theater can do?
Yeah. And it's comfortable because it's following a framework that's been done before. It's formula. And and if you're going to create a movie and you want to make money, then like how do you ignore things like Hallmark movies that like there's 3 plots, but they have millions and millions of viewers and people look forward to it. And I think there's even Christmas in July on right now on the W Network. But it works, and I'm sure you've read at least 10 books where you think, oh my God, this would make a brilliant movie, but it'll never make it because it's uncomfortable to make because no one else has made it yet.
Well, one of the always the risk, right? I mean, we're kind of getting outside the scope of the conversation.
Yes, yeah.
But I would let's say the Western film industry will put about 500 movies in the theaters any given year.
Yeah.
Sometimes lower, COVID, not as many. That doesn't mean that there's only that many movies being made, but we're talking about getting a theatrical release. Not only will you not see 100 of those, and they're the only ones that matter, is the top 100. If you look at box office, it's really the top 20. They take all of the money. I was saying to a friend, I really enjoyed Women Talking. That's just enjoy. Enjoy is not the right word. But that's a great film, a truly great film, an interesting film. All the great things you can say about not just the film, but the way it was made, its form. Sarah Polley at her best. Who knows what more is going to come out from her? But no one's, I'll be crass here. No one's going to see that movie. No one. It did fine for its size and the fact that for all intents and purposes it's a Canadian film, notwithstanding the fact that it was presented as an American film for Oscars contention and that. But no one's going to see it. No one's watching it. And when I say no one, the vast majority of people are infinitely more people will see, some dreck from Hallmark.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, it's not just the risk of the film producer, it's the risk of the film watcher.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And I would be as bold to say 3 out of 4 people will like it, because we went to see it in the theater with another couple, and 3 of us stayed awake and loved it, and the other person thought it was a
Drifted
great
off.
opportunity to catch up on some
What,
sleep.
we were talking about women talking, eh?
Yeah, women talking. Yeah,
Another
one of the,
solid poster, actually. One of the few no stack aheads, a line of like,
I don't
yeah.
remember the poster, but I
you
would
know
have.
what? We should be.
Yeah,
I could pull that poster. We could be at this for hours. But both of us have lives.
Well, we do.
I
we
have
do.
voiceover to do. You did have some great advice for us. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that? First, what was, if memory serves, the next time we look at a poster, when we think of our favorite poster, think about the element that draws us in and what that means, what that reminds us of actually. Is that, did I get that right?
I think so. And you know what? I think there's a lot of effort that goes into movie posters from a design perspective. And I think you need to apply some level of mindfulness when you're at the mall and walking by a movie theater and the posters are there, or even when you're on Netflix and scrolling through.
Away.
Really take a look, take a look at this stuff, or and again, look up some of your favorite movie posters. That's kind of geeking out, and that's okay. We all have things we geek out over.
We just spent almost 2 hours.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. But the last thing I would say, I wish that the Hollywood influence wasn't nearly as prevalent as it was, because there are some beautiful designs coming from other countries that don't follow the formula necessarily, and capture the story brilliantly. And yes, sometimes they're bad movies, like Midsummer. Nice poster.
Not a fan.
No, not a fan. I think because I was set up on that one. But anyway, there's some in India. There's some amazing design. In Brazil, there's amazing design. In Europe, there's Japan. And anime. The posters are gorgeous, right? Like hang on the wall, gorgeous. And that's
Soviet era.
Soviet
film poster design, like Eastern Europe pre the collapse of the Soviet Union. Like some really cool.
Yeah. So my last question for you before we go is, out of all the posters we've seen today, planned or tangent, which one would you put on your wall? If you could only put one of those on your wall.
You know what? I am going to say, I can't. That is interesting, because I have a number of posters on my wall, on my walls, but there's almost always more of a personal story attached to them, the idea it's conveying. There is not one movie poster on the walls in my home. So if I look at that list, the movies we talked about, right now, I got to admit, as disturbing as it is, I'd say right now it'd be this.
I could see that.
I was hoping this, because it's so.
Yeah.
I want to know more.
I was really hoping your choice was going to be It's Alive, but that was a close second.
Well, it's got that lurid color, right?
Totally. Absolutely. Yes. And I think that would look good in your place. And, you love to travel, and it kind of has that Mediterranean look. And
again, I was like, south of France? Are we in Cannes? Like, what's going on here?
It has that vibe, right? And when you think about it, it's very minimal in elements, but it captures that vibe right away.
Also, interestingly enough, I can't believe I can't shut up about the stupid poster, but it's looking away from the sea. The light is coming in from a weird angle, and it's got a weird temperature to it. Not weird like, oh, that isn't right, but it's everything's cool.
It's almost like it's studio lit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which we're
And
used to
not
seeing, but
but,
not on a
like,
beach.
on purpose, like, that's a choice. That wasn't
Yeah,
a
yeah,
like, you do not feel like you're being manipulated. Or you're being fooled. Maybe
yeah,
that's it's like, "Oh, you're not trying to pull a fast one here. That's obviously Photoshop." It's like, "No, everything I'm being shown is on purpose,
yeah, yeah.
and it's to motivate me to," well, I've probably talked you and I, Evan, have talked more about the poster than I bet you the short film is. And I
Probably.
think on that note, that
Uh,
is Evan, first of all, will you come back to talk more about posters and maybe graphic design in the movies?
yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. All
Yeah,
right. Oh,
I have a great story about visiting Lionsgate because I had a connection there one time.
outs. Well, save that. We will have you back.
Okay.
Um, why don't you tell us? Of course, you can see your personal tag there, but you are a graphic designer.
Yeah.
You've hung out your own shingle. You've been partners in graphic design firms, in creative firms. Now you've got your own shingle.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us about Slybird Creative.
Well, it's kind of the culmination of a lot of years of experience from working for very creative ad agencies to design shops to owning my own place to even having spent a time working in Germany, a language I do not speak. At an ad agency there. And I'm always looking for that creative angle, that little twist, not unlike what you see on a movie poster that kind of intrigues you and brings you in. And so that's kind of the way I approach my problem solving in the design world. So that's where Slybird Creative, the name comes from, and that's my approach.
In a very cinematic, big wide screen, got that symmetry, also
Yeah,
get that interesting lighting angle going on here.
yeah, it's got that look of, oh my God, Evan, why have you not updated your website in 7 years? Which it's on the list of things to do, but like my clients keep bugging me for projects, so it keeps getting pushed
You
down.
are, it's, I haven't updated my voiceover demo in years, although I keep saying, "Oh, I gotta get on that."
Yeah,
But the cobbler's sons, right? The cobbler's children. It's like,
exactly. It's always the way. So
um, but Evan, yeah. So, folks, Evan, of course, you can see his handle, but I've also put a link to his Instagram, a link to his company's Instagram, and of course his website, which will be updated in the near
soon,
future,
yeah, near future, yeah,
in the
coming.
fullness of time.
I really should post a teaser, shouldn't I? Thank you,
Just
Rob.
one
This
of
is
those really cool splash pages that just goes contact.
Absolutely. In fact, I should probably take a poster like F1 and emulate it and
Yeah,
just,
and
put my
it's done.
car behind me and
You
a stoic pose, and just SBC, grayed out behind me. And I'd be set because it's formula. It obviously works.
Yeah. So Evan, why don't you hang out in the digital green room while I wrap this baby up? Folks, thanks again for tuning in. If you're watching on repeat, you got any questions? Feel free to comment. Tell us about your favorite poster. Like Evan said, what's your favorite poster? Look it up. Examine it, really look at it closely, kind of think about what it evokes in you. What are the references it's making that make it work for you? And also, as a bit of a, tell us about the poster where you go, wow, great poster, terrible film. Thanks to everyone. And of course, please like, subscribe, and ring-a-ding that bell.